Hey, Larken Rose here. Just wanted to do a quick follow-up about what the IRS is doing in my case. Again, my case by itself, kind of who cares, but there are lessons to be learned about our government and what it's really all about, how it functions. If you want the whole background story, click here, and you can go to the other video that explains the whole thing, and then you'll be brought back here afterwards. Otherwise, the short version is this. A while back, the IRS said that years and years ago, when my wife and I had a medical transcription business, we should have classified the people who did typing for us as employees instead of subcontractors, which is factually and legally bogus and incorrect. But what they did was they made that up. I don't know who made it up. I don't know what it was based on. They never said what it was based on. They never said who made the determination. They started by saying, you owe us $1 zillion and this, that, and the other thing, penalties and interest for not filing employer returns. Well, we were never employers. We never had employees. So they made this up, and they kept escalating it until it was just ridiculous. I mean, the total was like $300,000, which is more than what my wife and I both made combined for all of the years in question total. So, you know, aside from anything else, imagine them saying, oh, you categorized something wrong, so everything you earned in all those years you have to give to us. That's what they're saying. Now, aside from that is the fact that they're totally legally incorrect, but the actual point here isn't the technical details of the disagreement. It's showing what due process looks like when you deal with the IRS, especially if you're on their enemies list, which I am. And if you think that's a conspiracy thing to say, it's long been known that the IRS codes certain people in a certain way that means to all the IRS employees, don't give this person any due process. Don't meet with them. Speed up collections as fast as you can. Skip all due process the entire way. And that's exactly what happened in my case. They never offered me an examination meeting, sometimes called an audit. They didn't say, hey, we think you owe something, we want you to come in and talk to us. They said, give us tons of money. And then I wrote and said, wait, I have a right to a meeting, and I totally disagree because you just made this up. I don't even know who made it up or based on what, but you made it up, you're totally wrong, I want a meeting. Didn't give me a meeting, didn't give me an appeals meeting, didn't give me any of the due process. So we got up to the point where I requested a collections due process hearing. Now this is something that Congress enacted in 1998 because over concerns that people were complaining the IRS just skips all due process. So here's this meeting. The purpose of it is for a taxpayer to be able to go to the IRS and say, wait, you have to demonstrate before you try collections, liens or levies or whatever, and they stuck a lien on me for a gazillion dollars I don't have. Before you do that, you have to prove that you actually followed your own procedures and obeyed the law and provided due process. So that's the purpose of this meeting. So, at the end of the last video I made, the status was I had requested one of those hearings, a collection due process hearing. They had acknowledged the request, said, okay, we got it. They didn't set a time. I was busy with other things, so I didn't pester them. But I was just about to pester them again and said, okay, when do I get my meeting? When I got a letter that says, you don't get a meeting. In fact, we're going to fine you $5,000 for asking for a meeting because we decided your request was frivolous. Now, keep in mind, my request didn't even argue anything legal. There were no issues. The entire issue is, wait, you guys skipped all due process on the way to collections. And the statute about collections due process hearings says that at the hearing, the IRS has the burden of proof to show that they actually followed all required procedures and laws before resorting to collections, seizing bank accounts or levies, liens, whatever, things like that. So, the IRS, instead of giving me a meeting, says, no, we're going to fine you. Oh, they say, you're allowed to take back your request for a meeting. Otherwise, not only don't you get a meeting, but we're going to fine you $5,000 for asking for due process. Now, I'm not kidding. Yeah, I'll show you the letter. Here's the letter saying that. Now this, as I've said before, this Rick Santorum character, this extortionist bozo in Massachusetts, that may or may not be his real name. They use fake names all the time. But here's this letter just saying, no, we're not going to meet with you. You don't get a collections due process, and we're just going to unilaterally declare that you asking for one was frivolous, and based on that alone, no argument, no explanation why it was frivolous, because it's a completely idiotic thing to say it was frivolous, we're going to steal $5,000 more from you on top of the other stuff we're going to steal without giving any due process. Now, a little background. For years and years, there's been a frivolous return penalty where the IRS can say, you filed a return and you argued something that we decided was frivolous, so we're not going to process the return and we're going to fine you $500 for filing the return. That's been around for years and years. Well, every once in a while, the IRS has tried to push through a law that said, let's not make it 500, let's make it 5,000. And better yet, let's make it not just include tax returns, let's make it include requests for hearings. Now, guess who was instrumental in pushing that into law? It failed once, maybe twice. Eventually it made it into law. Rick Santorum, that fascist bastard, was one of the people who pushed the bill through that makes it so the IRS can say, not only are we not going to give you any due process, but we're going to steal $5,000 from you for asking us to give you due process. You can thank Rick Santorum for that. Of course, he wasn't the only crook who wanted it, but he was one of the leading crooks to completely demolish any remaining shred of due process that exists inside the federal tax system. And check this out, thanks to Santorum and his fellow fascists, the law now says that if the IRS unilaterally says your request was frivolous, and they don't have to say why, they don't have to prove anything, you never get a hearing, if they say that, the law now says you don't get any administrative or judicial review ever. So if they completely make it up, as they did in my case, there is nothing you can do about it, which totally goes against what the Supreme Court says about due process and the right to be heard and the right to appeal decisions and all that. No, thanks to fascist Santorum, if they want to just make this up, and they don't have to give any reason, they don't have to give any evidence, they don't have to give any argument, if they just make it up, you get zero opportunity to prove that they just made it up and are lying through their teeth. Thanks, Santorum, you Nazi bastard. Again, that's if you happen to be coded on their enemies list. And if you watch the other video, you can see it's obviously they have me coded in such a way that means don't give him any meetings. Every level of the IRS throws it around from one city to another. They all know that that code means don't meet with this guy ever. Don't give him any due process. Go to collections as fast as you can. Skip all the law. Doesn't matter what the laws say, what the procedures say. Doesn't matter that Congress specifically said in 1998, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to code people in a way that means don't give them any due process. They ignore that law just like they ignore all the other laws. So my case got tossed around. All the due process I was supposed to get, I got none. It's been to 7 different cities. As you saw from the letter, now it's in Massachusetts. Well, it should be at Hatboro, Pennsylvania. That's the closest IRS office to me. It's been in Detroit and now Massachusetts. It was in Atlanta, Kansas City at one point. They throw it around all over the place just to be a pain in the neck, which works pretty well. And again, when I wrote to the taxpayer advocate and said, hey, wait a minute, they gave me no due process. Somebody made this up based on something, I don't even know what it's based on because they never told me, never gave me a meeting, went all the way to collections. That's totally illegal. Their own publications say it. The law says it. The regulations say it. Everything says that. They're not allowed to do that. And the taxpayer advocate wrote back and said, your request is frivolous. We're not going to help you. Obviously, they noticed the code that says, don't give this guy any due process. He's on our enemies list. And Congress knows they do this. Every once in a while, TIGTA, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, who I also wrote to, who did nothing about this, every once in a while they do an audit and they say, oh, the IRS is still doing these illegal things, so we told them not to, again. So they acknowledge that they totally break that law. And they still are, obviously, as in my case. So, in my case, they're trying to steal $300,000 that I don't have, I've never had. But here's my point, after all this. This Frank Santrella fascist moronic thug, who's breaking all the laws, I'm sure because somebody told him to, he's just following orders like a good little Nazi. If I had had $300,000, like, if I had saved up my whole life and they hadn't already robbed me blind, right now I have, like, nothing. I have less than nothing, I have giant debts, and that's it. So, in my case, There's not much to steal. But imagine Frank Santrella or one of his fellow extortionist, lawless thugs picked on somebody who actually had $300,000 somewhere. His life savings. Picture this as some guy who worked his whole life, 30, 40, 50 years, working his fingers to the bone to save up that money. You know, his life savings, $300,000. That's a whole lot more life savings than most people have. And he has it sitting in a banker somewhere. And some jackass like Frank Santrella comes along and just steals it, based on a complete lie they made up, followed by an absolute denial of all due process, start to finish. No chance to be heard, no meeting, no back and forth. IRS never even saying what its determination was based on or who made it. And so imagine that Frank Santrella picks on some guy and steals his entire life savings. Imagine some guy who actually has it to steal. And they wipe him out. They steal $300,000. Now, if that guy decides, I'm done writing letters, I'm done asking for meetings, and he shows up at your office, Mr. Santrella, with a tire iron, and he says, you know, I tried this the legal way. I tried asking for meetings, I tried writing letters, I tried explaining my position, why you were wrong. You didn't give me any meeting anyway. I tried it the legal, polite, civilized way, but now, Mr. Santrella, I'm here to break your damn legs. Mr. Santrella, what are you going to say to him? When that happens to you or one of your fellow thugs who treat people this way, what are you going to say to him? And if you say, well, I was just following orders, the Nazi defense, didn't work for the Nazis and it's not going to work for you. When one day you try to steal the life savings of somebody who decides he's not going to put up with it anymore, what are you going to say to him? What should that individual have done to not get his life savings stolen from him? Should he have asked for meetings? Should he have explained his position? Should he have pointed out that you're supposed to give? You don't care about that. You rob him blind based on absolute lies. You, Mr. Santrella, and all the other fascist extortionists at the IRS who treat people like this, you are the ones teaching people that there is no recourse here except either hiding, running away, or violently resisting. I'm out here saying, no, don't violently resist. Don't threaten the stupid extortionists like Mr. Santrella. You'll only get yourself in trouble. You're the one teaching them what JFK said. When you make nonviolent revolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. So when some guy shows up at your office with a tire iron to break your damn legs because of the way you treat people, what's your excuse going to be? One of these days, one of your victims may show up, one who's not so patient or idiotically patient as I am, and he's going to decide, yeah, nothing else is going to do it. The whole system, Congress, the courts, the IRS, all the different levels, all the different offices, none of them care that this illegal extortion is going on. So I'm going to go to Mr. Santrella's office and I'm going to break his damn legs. And you know what? You would deserve it. If you wipe out somebody's life savings the way you tried to with me, again, I don't have any to wipe out, so won't be my case. But if somebody actually had $300,000 and you stole it from them the way you've treated me, if they're on the IRS's enemies list, and he comes to break your damn legs, you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. And one of these days, you or one of your fellow thugs is going to learn the hard way that you cannot hide behind the excuse of just following orders. You don't have the facts on your side. You don't even have the law on your side. You don't have justice on your side. The only thing you have on your side is that people are scared of you. Well, Mr. Santrella and all the other extortionist, fascist bastards who work at the IRS, one day you're going to learn the hard way that sometimes even being sheltered by authority will not protect you from the anger of your victims. And the ultimate irony here is that I have been trying and trying to keep that from happening, to get justice by way of saying words and explaining things and presenting evidence. That's all I've done. I haven't threatened anybody. I haven't hurt anybody. You bastards have raided my house and robbed me blind and stuck me in a cage for a year for something that the prosecution and their witnesses knew I hadn't done. I'm still just here saying words and you're acting like a fascist. Well, Mr. Santrella, when the day comes that one of your victims decides not to do what I do, when he decides to come to your office to break your legs or worse, you're going to deserve it. How about if right now, before the guy is standing in front of you with a tire iron, you start acting like a civilized human being?